Welcome to the show. It's Club Corbie for Thursday, the 21st of May 2020. How can we be that far through May already? We're 2/3 of the way gone. It's going to be June before we know it. And on today's show, we're going to be continuing on with our Clip Studio Paint project. Most of the way there now. So we're going to be working on Ruby today, and maybe if we have time we'll start fixing up Morgan as well. And she could use all the help that she can get, quite frankly. Won't waste any time because as you'll know if you've been here for previous streams, cleaning up the characters is a bit of a time consuming process. The colouring side of things actually isn't so bad, but getting everybody fixed up is much more fiddly. We always have to fix up a lot of things from the pen and paper version of the art. Before we can begin fixing up the line there. Oh, that reminds me, by the way, I do have one little thing that I've got to fix. I posted Josie's art on Instagram last night, and afterwards I noticed there was a little gap there. Oh, in fact, there's also make sure you're picking the right tool. There we go. I had to erase that little edge of the hair. I did a fair bit of re-editing on Josie yesterday after yesterday's stream. Pulled the hair down a bit, rounded out the shape of the head or the top of the skull a little bit, just so that it was pulling inwards instead of just going straight up. Added some shading to the flowers, fixed some of the shading on the hair a bit. And some other tweaks as well. Resize the eye, move the position of the nose. These are all just things up the top of my head, and what would happen is I was going to go and export this portion of the image to put it on Instagram, and every time I went to go do it, I'd notice another issue that I hadn't fixed or something that I hadn't seen before, and I was banging my head against the table. Not literally, but you can imagine I was just like, it was never right. And then I posted that. I'm dead. It just went nowhere. So, see, I've been experimenting with hashtags and things and trying to do something to get the engagement back up for everything that I've been posting on Instagram. And sometimes when you experiment, you actually make things worse. And instead of going in the right direction, you're going in the wrong direction. So that's going to be a case of whatever I did yesterday, I should probably do the opposite of that in terms of trying to target my posts to actually reach more people. It's not working out. Not what I'm doing just now anyway. it's very difficult because the comics scene on Instagram specifically is very competitive. If you're not, I think the tags that people would use to search for comics, you know, typically comics, comic books, comic art, even something like web comics, for example, is a slightly lower ranking one. And the fact of the matter is, if you want to be seen and show up when people go to search, it's so competitive that you have to be already very high ranking or you're just not going to show. The way that the algorithm works, the way that it works now, it was always bad, and now it's worse. So that's an issue. And another issue with it is the fact that there's a certain type of well, I don't know if you read a certain type of comics. Yeah, there's a certain type of comic content that does well on Instagram, and it's not serialized comics. As far as web comics go, it's, you know, the more sort of relatable content that people can post and say, you know, this is true to my real life experience, and you know, that's the stuff that gets shared. If you're doing a fantasy webcomic or a superhero webcomic or something like that, or something more adventure based, that doesn't necessarily that sort of content is less likely to get shared, and then it's like a vicious circle, because then it's less likely to get looked upon favourably by the algorithm, and it's just like it's a non-starter. And I would say, I'm trying to be charitable here, I mean, I like a lot of those comics too, you know, that sort of slice of life sort of stuff, the very relatable sort of stuff. I do feel like so much of what I was trying to do with Corbie in the beginning was I wanted it to be a superhero comic for, specifically as a primary audience, you know, people who consider themselves to be introverts or highly sensitive people. I had that very specific audience in mind, and I still do, but the kind of content that you see in relation to comics about introversion and things like that is that kind of slice of life stuff, and it's kind of like this. Or isn't it funny that I like books and I like to stay in the house and that kind of stuff? Well, and some of that stuff is fine. I wanted to do something that was that sort of went beyond that sort of base level exploration of introversion. Or of being an HSP. The other issue is that those themes within Corbie are a difficult thing to convey on social media, because you know, you only have a very short amount of time to grab someone's attention. So the sort of the underlying themes of the comic sometimes just you don't have the opportunity to touch upon that. And so it kind of becomes more like it's subtext. Anyway, the thing about Instagram is, as a platform, I really don't like it, and I feel like a lot of... I think, I'm sure I've spoken about this in the past. I feel like so much of my issue with Instagram is because of the long life cycle that, or the long development cycle, I should say, that Corbie had, and the fact that it's something that I was developing right through the last decade. It was always that thing that it was in development, so it was never, you know, it wasn't something that was visible to the public until a year and a half ago now. And so, because of that, you know, there was no Corbie Instagram page in 2012, 2013, wherever. So there wasn't the opportunity to build a following for the comic, and that's really regrettable, because I feel like if we could have gotten in a lot earlier, before all the algorithm changes and things. But this is based on conversations that I've had with other artists and discussions that I've seen other artists having. It seems like the opportunities to be seen were much greater before, and now there's just so much noise and things have changed so much in terms of the way the algorithm works that it's much harder now. And I mean, even I've seen that myself, just in the time between when Corbie launched and we were on Instagram, and that was in, you know, that was the end of 2018. Even just since then, things have, it's gotten much more difficult. And that's on top of the other fact that the first couple of months that we were on Instagram, I was able to keep the momentum going in terms of posting all the time. I'm trying to post more actively again now, but you know, there's only so much content, and it's really become one of the big challenges that I faced as a creator that I didn't really have, you know, when I was making comics back in the early 2000s. Is now there's this constant need for, there's systems in place, computer systems in place that are going to punish you if you're not posting stuff every day, and they're going to make sure you're never seen again after that. So this is all shop talk. This is the sort of the stuff that I'm dealing with, sort of behind the scenes. The other thing that's been going on that I've been working on over the last couple of days, in fact I was just working before the stream started today, is I'm doing layouts for future Corbie comics as well. I do have scripts for another 10 daily comic strips that are completed. The challenge now is I'm at that storyboard stage. I'm just trying to figure out the logistics for each page. That's going to be a case of we're going to want to have a very quick turnaround on them. We don't want to have them drag on for for like 6 weeks or whatever it was, like the last set of 10. So I've got 10 more. And they're not going to be done the way that we've done, the way that we did the last set, or the way that we've done this poster, which is this sort of, pencil to pen and ink to, fixing everything up. We're going to bypass that completely. We're basically going to go from having, the process is going to be, we're going to do very rough storyboards in Club Studio Paint. That's what I'm doing just now, and then use that as like a reference point, and then create polished versions. Again, everything's going to be done within Club Studio Paint. I think at this point that seems to be the way that we are headed. And this is actually back to front. That kind of ties back into the plans for future streams as well, because certainly we'll be streaming as normal tomorrow, but I think we need to pull this strand of the hair back out. We'll be streaming as normal tomorrow, and then I'm hoping by tomorrow's show we're going to be ready to wrap this poster up, because by then we shouldn't have much more to do. I would imagine by the end of tomorrow's stream all of these characters should be complete, and we can sort of start to reassemble all the elements and just polish things off and just, you know, have our final poster image. But tomorrow it's going to be, I think, the last show we're going to do around this poster project. I don't know what the situation is going to be with Club Corbie next week, because I anticipate I'm going to have fire engagements. So it's possible that there won't be any Club Corbie next week. I'm not entirely sure yet. My suggestion would be I'll try and keep you posted if we get nearer to the time. I would definitely keep an eye on the Corbie Instagram page. And as soon as I know it's happening, I'll post it there as well. I'm actually thinking we might do an evening session on Saturday, this coming Saturday, and we'll just have a sort of a big blowout stream before the before I have to take time off for a couple of days. I don't know what we're going to do yet, and obviously we don't have any new art to work on, so we could always just do something on the fly. So I don't know yet if we're going to do, maybe on Saturday evening, maybe we might do an art stream, or we might do something different. We might just do a gaming stream or something just for fun. I don't know what we would play if we did a gaming stream, because the last time we played DuckTales 1 and 2 on Nintendo, and I tore through DuckTales 1 in about 45 minutes, but finished the whole game. Didn't get the good ending like I wanted. The great ending, I should say. I just got the standard ending. And then the following day I did DuckTales 2. Had some kind of an error that prevented me from getting the really good ending on that as well. Again, it only took me about an hour, and it was kind of an anticlimax. It was like, well, that's it. The other thing about the DuckTales stream was, I think I announced it very last minute, and it was it was Saturday and Sunday morning UK time, which was, most people in the UK were asleep at that time, never mind people in other countries. So it was a really bad scheduling decision on my part, so it didn't help me. It didn't encourage anybody to watch, so that was a bad move. I don't know what else we could play. It would have to be, you would think, something that I was really good at and was capable of completing. Something that wouldn't take me hours and hours. I don't know, like Super Mario Brothers 2 or something like that I could do. But I kind of feel like that's been done. Careful. Move the whole canvas. I keep doing that just by accident as I'm switching between my tools. I don't feel like there's actually that much wrong with Ruby's art compared to the other ones. And a lot of the issues are things that we've already fixed. So a lot of this is just, you know, we smoothed out a lot of the line art for everybody else. So there's very little point in changing up our process at this point. Come this far, we may as well stick to it. By the way, there are various processes that you can use to smooth out your lines even within Clip Studio Paint. There are some functions for that, and I have demonstrated some other ways in the past that you can just take your line out and sort of automatically smooth the lines out. And I ended up falling down the rabbit hole last summer of looking into other people's processes for doing that, and then refining that further and try to come up with my own ways to just tweak that. And what I found happened was, initially I thought this is a godsend. This is going to save me so much time. fixing up the lines and so on. What seemed to happen instead was it did remove a lot of this sort of roughage from the lines and smooth them out, but the automation process just seemed to create as many problems as it fixed, if that makes sense. That for every line that got smoothed out that was usable, there we go, move the canvas again, for every line that got smoothed out and it's like, well, that's an improvement, that's a time saver, something else needed to get fixed up or just turned into a useless sort of blob on the canvas. And so it was a case of I'd really just swapped out one set of problems for a new set. Much of Corbie issue 3 was done that way. Over the summer of last year. And as I was going, I was just trying to really come up with a set of steps I could do within Photoshop, and then later tried to replicate that in Club Studio Paint as well, to actually to just take the inking step out completely. Could I adjust my pencils as well and remove inking from the process completely, and then just have a set of really good, clean, smooth lines. And yeah, like I said, it just seemed like it was going to be a good thing, and then it just brought up with it new challenges. And so much of my trying to develop my process as a comics artist over the last 5 or even 10 years has been about going back and forth between traditional pencil to pen artwork, and is that faster for me, or just doing everything all digital, or something in between, and trying to find what the fastest method is of doing it. And there's no wrong way of doing it, whichever way you pick. But it was it's been a question of trying to find what is the most efficient for me. And obviously I'm still trying to figure it out, because I'm still, I'm at the point where I'm saying now, I'm going to go all digital again. And just really trying to minimize the amount of work I'm doing on each page. I think that even as you see me here just now, you know, ironing out the shape of this eye to get rid of these little the crinkles from the ink landing on the page. Even as I'm doing that, it's what I'm thinking is this is the sort of stuff that I don't want to be doing in the future. At least not for, you know, the main day-to-day comic stuff. I mean, something like this for a poster, I guess, is not so bad. And I feel like a one-off art piece like this sort of I could justify taking a bit more time with it and refining it. But this sort of process, in my opinion, is not it's not viable for me as a way of making comics day to day in the future. And I hope that's not disappointing to you if you're watching this, you know, to if you're watching a stream where somebody shows you how to make comics, and it's like here I am saying what I'm doing now isn't working for me, don't do this. Well, I'm not saying don't do this. I'm kind of showing you what my process is for making this particular piece of art, for this poster art, and trying to also give you some insight into what has worked for me, what hasn't worked, and the challenges that I have encountered along the way. I talk a lot about how this sort of style of going in and cleaning up every single pixel on the page can be very destructive. Again, for what we're doing here, we want to have a very high res, and it's just going to look good in print. So we can kind of just about to a degree. But I really feel like it can be very self-destructive and long-term. This is how you're going to make comics every day. I don't know if you've seen the discourse that's been going around on Twitter for the last couple of days about your productivity and about your worth as a comic creator. And a lot of that went back. It was about, or a lot of the discourse ended up being about the value of what webcomic creators make versus the output of somebody who is I suppose a traditionally published comic creator who has a publisher who probably only has to handle one aspect of the comic creation process as well. There'll be a penciler, or there'll be an inker, or there'll be a colorist or a writer, whereas as webcomic creators, most of us are doing all of these things and usually getting paid nothing or next to nothing. For 99.9% of people who create comics for the web, It's not a paid job. But my point was, that the ability to output a lot of work is important. It's becoming very important to me, and part of the reason it's becoming very important to me now more than ever is because of what I was talking about earlier, and all that stuff about the Instagram algorithm, and not just Instagram but other social media platforms as well. The idea that, and I've spoken about this on stream before as well, if you're not seen on stream all the time, if you're not in somebody's feed all the time, then it's almost like you may as well have just vanished off the face of the earth. You may as well cease to exist, because they're going to see other information, they're going to see other material instead, and not even just necessarily comics, just sort of information in general. And it's very easy for somebody to forget about you. Not even intentionally, they just don't. You're not seen, and somebody else has taken up that space. And that's before you even get into all that stuff about the algorithm and the need to have content constantly being produced, or in the eyes of some people, if you can't produce content all the time, then that they view you as being a less capable artist in a way. A lot of people, it's not fair, but that's sort of what the perception is. And so in terms of the way that I make Corbie, I can't spend a lot of time fussing about it. I have to find ways to reroute the way that I work on the comic in such a way I can produce more material. I mean, that's kind of what I want to do anyway, because I don't want to do 1 or 2 Corbie stories a year. There are so many things I want to do with this series, and so many stories that I want to tell. The part that goes back to what I was saying earlier as well about my sort of intent with Corbie and the messages inherent in the story and the subtext as well, and it's much more difficult to convey those messages if you can only tell 2 stories a year, and you kind of just have to, like everything that we've done so far, it's a case of set up Corinne getting her powers and becoming Corbie, and then we can't really get beyond that, and we can't do much more than that because the pace has been so slow. And so although there's a pressure to generate more content, which can be very stressful, you feel that people won't even give you the time of day if you can't, but there's also personal, I'm sort of personally incentivized as well to want to produce more material more often, and so that is what I'm trying to do, is to really finally sort of crack the code. And it's something that I feel I've struggled with the entire time that I've been making comics, is to be able to output material much more quickly and not spend a lot of time fiddling about with. Of course, you still want to be able to produce work that's to a high standard as well. So it's kind of a balancing act. I don't feel that having an excessive amount of detail in your work is, well, I'm sure in some people's eyes that sort of, you know, having a very flashy or sort of detailed style is a good thing, and they'll be impressed by it and they'll say, wow. I almost feel like that can be a very simplistic way of looking at things. So much of the reason that I adopted this sort of style, this more cartoony style, after issue 1 of Corbie was a kind of 180 in terms of the art style that I wanted the comic to be in. I was just trying to look at other things that inspired me creatively. I just approached the comic in a different way, but the idea was that this style would be something that would be more appealing and also easier to create. And now I've got to pause because it's recovering. I thought I went in and turned that off. I'm sure I did. In the previous stream I went in and went into the settings and switched that off so it wouldn't auto-save. It's still doing it. Okay, one of the eyes, the eyelid, is a bit higher than the other. In fact, the lower eyelid as well. Actually, we're actually almost an hour into the show. I'm still doing cleanup, but yeah, we're most of the way there in this poster anyway, so we are getting there. Also, I don't know if I've kind of been talking a lot in today's show, so I don't know if that's slowing me down. I don't know, it's like if I talk, then I feel like am I saying too much? Am I boring everybody? Or if I don't talk, I feel like I'm being too quiet as well, and I feel like I need to be more talkative, so. And sometimes I feel like I'm just venting, like when I was talking about Instagram, I almost feel like let's just like, well, go off, John. Okay, I feel like we need to add a backing layer behind the face so we can start to see what it's going to look like. Now we've taken big chunks of image out of it. We've got to be careful, make sure we're 12 on the right layer, which I wasn't doing. Okay. I never feel like I'm going to quite get the ear shape that I want. It usually just ends up being sort of squiggles, to be honest with you. I'm not trying to draw the best sort of electronic representation of an ear that I've ever done. Also, reducing the size of the details is probably going to help a little bit, and bending out top corner as well. Can't believe we've been working all this time and we haven't actually fixed up the nose or the mouth. Jeez. Okay. Not that there's a whole lot to do here. I feel like I have to be very careful here because I feel like the expression that Josie has here, say Josie, Ruby, sometimes they get the names between the two of them mixed up. Even I do, but I feel like I have to be very careful because if I refine this, the shape of the mouth or the shape of the eyes or anything too much, it's very easy to lose a lot of the expression and whatever it was that you had captured initially when you penciled it. That can go away, or just little changes that you make to expressions can make such a difference in terms of what gets conveyed, so you've got to be careful. By the way, the nose is a little stubby. See, sometimes you do have to make changes. This is a little bit as well, so that looks a bit more on model, I think. And with that, I believe the only thing that's left to do is, well, so these cheekbones aren't quite even, but compared with some of the other characters, just a bit more on balance. Oh, save time. Okay. Eyebrows. And another example of certain elements of the face here that I would want to not muck about with too much, because I was really happy with how the expression came out, and I don't want to like ruining it if I start to just move things around. Even just a very slight adjustment of the eyelid like that, I've got to be careful. And in keeping with the way that we have shaded everybody else, I'll probably get rid of this, because that kind of detailing is fine when we're doing shading everybody with pen illustration, but when everybody's going to be coloured digitally, that can be a bit too much. So we've got to fix these up too. See, I think that Ruby may have been the character who needed the least amount of work to fix up, but at the same time, somehow it's taken us an hour. But maybe that's just a case of, because I felt like she came out looking better than everybody else, but I want to make sure there's an extra bit of polish there. And with that said, we're going to save the work, and then we're going to get started on the colouring stage. Alright, let's go. So first of all, looks like here we're going to merge line art with the layer beneath it, because we made so many corrections to the shape of the face that we're going to need to. And because Ruby wears the white shirt as well, might be in our best interests to just sort of create a kind of a green canvas. It's going to sit between our line art and canvas, just so that we can see what we're doing better. Above that we'll make a layer just for the skin tone. From the bottom and we'll work our way up, and having that green backing is going to help us to spot any areas that we might miss as we go. And when we're working within the confines of the image, we can go over the lines as we get to the outside of it, like here. Be a bit more careful. And up here we can go weld again. As long as we make sure that these sort of areas that we can't see are filled in, there's no gaps. Okay, use the paint bucket tool. Fill that in. We'll go back up. Get a hair color. We have the Alice band in the middle. Again, I don't care if I go over the lines and that, because we're going to put it on top of it. So it's actually in our best interest to go over the lines a bit, just to make sure that we don't leave any gaps, so that the background doesn't end up poking through. And in fact we could paint right over the whole sort of Alice band section if we wanted to. But we don't need to. As long as the areas where the hair is going to be shown are covered, and internally we just give ourselves a little bit of wiggle room by going over the line a little bit. By internally I mean this inner line here, just like I said, just to fill in any potential gaps. And again, you can see we can go over those overlapping areas with the skin. It doesn't really matter because the hair goes over it, so it hides those. Because the image actually cuts off before the hair stops, we just sort of have to pick an arbitrary cut-off point where we're going to stop adding colour. Gonna have to lower the size of the brush just temporarily so I can get into this corner. I could actually just go over the earring there because again the earring's gonna go on another layer on top of the hair one, but actually just noticed a tiny little gap in the skin there, right on the ear, so okay, switching back. Oh, I missed the spot. And again, at the very top of the ear, I'll spot the thing there, so we can switch back and forth. We'll add another layer. And just start to colour in the Alice band. And we won't even go up to the reference sheet for the colours, we'll just use a plain white. We will go over the shirt. I'm going to turn the white off, so I'm going to turn the skin tone off because it's going to make it easier to see what I'm colouring in, which areas need to be coloured. Going over the lines a little bit. And on the same layer, we can also get away with just adding the eye whites on this layer as well. Again, taking extra care to make sure that we don't miss any spots because the skin tone is so light. Very easy to make that mistake. that surprises me actually. I didn't think that the I didn't think that was how the character art was going to come out looking once I had all of the basic colours added. Might lighten the eye colour up just a bit. Definitely different to how it looks just with the line art alone. Okay, we can get rid of the green backing there now because we filled in all of the main areas. I think the only thing that we missed was the earrings. Got to do the earrings as well.
Exactly clear whether they even truly exist, or could be shown to, in the physical universe. If they do, if one day physics finds a use for them, that's great. But if not, that's great too.
I actually think that the multiply layer on that's a little bit too light for the shading, so we're going to just darken it a little bit.
You have reached the voicemail box of
Kino
Just wait for the tone. The person you're trying to reach is not available right now. If you need further assistance, enter pound now.
Please leave your name, number, and a message after the tone.
Goodbye.
Okay, now we're at the switching layers on and off to figure out which is which stage. There we go. I'm just going to get really excessive here and just keep adding more layers because I'm about to purge them all anyway. Actually, I think that might be a bit too much. Scale it back. Too much sort of gloss to the lips. It's gonna make them appear very pale, and then that's gonna sort of defeat the purpose, and then the lips are just gonna end up blending and they'll become the same color as as the face. So but I think that is that. So if we switch off all of our other color layers, and get rid of that backing, the green layer that we made. Merge all of the color layers together, we'll call it Ruby Colors. And that is going to be Ruby's art completed, and we're going to save it. And that means there's only 2 more characters to go. Okay, but we've got a problem because we've only got 20 minutes left on today's show, which is not a whole lot of time. Less than 20 minutes even to get started fixing Morgan's lineup, because it is... I don't even know what I was thinking with this mouth especially. It is... really something. In fact, I know that at the time when I was doing this, I said, look, I know the mouth is a mess. We'll fix it in post. And here we are. I think the first thing we'll do is we'll just get rid of the lip section completely. Pull out the lips. Try and make the mouth a bit more symmetrical as well. Thin out top of the mouth as well. Obviously, we're not going to get Morgan done today. We've got a long road ahead of us to fix this. Moving the lips has changed the expression quite a bit there. Now she just looks confused and sort of angry. Which is pretty amazing if you think about it. All we did was just change the mouth, and that changed the expression completely. She went from this sort of boisterous smile, this kind of crazy look, to it's like a confused Mark Wahlberg face. So don't want her to look displeased. Because that really isn't in the spirit of the original art, so we'll pull the lips, we'll pull the shape of the mouth, I should say, up again. I think the mouth was a good example of one of those things where what happened was when I was inking it, it was wrong, and then I just tried to lean into it and made it worse. Until eventually, like I said, it was just it became a complete mess, and it's just that moment where you realise that something is beyond saving. At least the ink stage. Yeah, it still looks kind of strange, but I think a lot of that is going to come down to the fact that we need to start moving about the other components of the face as well. It's not just the mouth that's the issue. Got downscale the mouth a bit. And again, I really should have a white layer underneath, just to because we're going to be doing a lot of work fixing up the entire head here. There's no stone that will be left unturned. To bring this jaw down a fair bit. It's another reason why she ended up being a bit goofy looking. Also the fact that once we shrink the mouth down, which we have done now, that really affects the portions of the face. Take out some of this pen shading on the neck as well over here. Already that started to make a big difference. The neck kind of ended up being a bit long because of the fact that yeah, we shortened the jaw so much. So maybe we'll consider shortening that at some point. I don't think it's a priority just now, so. It really shows you how one alteration can lead to requiring some other things to be changed as well. It can kind of cause a bit of a domino effect. And the eyes are going to be a whole piece of work because one eye is only slightly lower than the other. In fact, the left eye is just a bit smaller on both sides, and it's a bit more cut off in terms of the way that it's been drawn. So what we're going to do is pull this down just a bit. Raise this up. Just going to just rotate the lower part of the eye here, but I think instead what we'll do is we'll just trim this off because we're going to need to do that anyway. As usual, so much of what we do on the show is about not so much me showing you what to do, but almost just pointing out the things that I have done incorrectly and saying, well, what are some ways that we can fix these things? And you know, I can't read the minds of you as a viewer or viewers who are watching this. I can only kind of go on your feedback, but you know, I don't know everybody's reasons for why they would watch Club Corbie or what their incentive is. If they want to learn how to make comics, if that's what you want, or if you're an existing reader of the comic, or if you just enjoy watching somebody make comics, it's just sort of like a chilling out, you know. But I'd like to think that we do a little bit of a mixture of those things on the show, you know. It's like we could talk about Corbie from sort of a behind the scenes perspective of what's happening with it, you know. I mean, just on the show today, so we talked a bit about what goes into the sort of the social media elements of being a comic creator, which is very important, especially nowadays. It ends up being, for better or worse, it's a big part of what I do to get the work out there. It really, I don't know how Corbie could exist without it, because you know, it's not like there's a big company behind it. It's not like there's a big marketing budget. The only way that I can get this material out there and get it in front of people and encourage them to read it is I have to be on, you know, on social media, in terms of being on Twitter, Instagram, on YouTube, and here, you know, on YouTube, on Twitch, on Periscope, all these different platforms. I have to kind of hustle and get my stuff out there. So that's a big part of the whole comic making process. So we've spoken a bit about that today, and we've spoken a bit about productivity and, you know, the process behind making comics and how that's changed for me over time and how we've gone back and forth. And we've spoken a bit about today as well about just sort of the mechanics of this as well. So a lot of the mechanics of working within Club Studio Paint and the mechanics as a comics artist of just that most basic of things, of drawing faces, which has been so much of what we've been doing, you know, over the last couple of days, really over the last 2 weeks on these streams. So we do a little bit of everything. And yeah, we do it every day. Next week we might not be doing it every day. In fact, I don't know if we're going to be doing streams next week, but if we aren't on at all next week, then, you know, eventually we'll get back up to speed and we'll get going again. We'll pick up where we left off, and by that point we'll be done with this whole poster project and we'll be doing something else. But, you know, we do this for a minimum of 10 hours every single week now, and it has become a part of my sort of my process as a comics creator and as an artist. And really just a part of my day that every afternoon I'm here on stream and I'm doing this with you, and I'm sharing this part of the experience as we do it here in Club Corbie. That nose is a bit wide. Again, just like with Ruby, we need to scale this down. And we're actually, that's just a bit out of time for today's show, but It's still a bit bigger than the other, so we're going to have to work on that. And I would say we need to scale this down a bit. Yeah, so tomorrow's show, last Club Corbie of the week, possibly our last regular show for a while. We might do a special evening session, I think, on Saturday. As I said, I don't know exactly what we're going to do. But, okay, I need to stop now because we could go on all day, and it gets very compulsive. As when you have an image like that, with Morgan here, we're trying to fix her up, and it can get very compulsive. It's like fix this, then fix this, and fix this, and you're trying to put everything right. So just like, I mean, Ruby didn't have a lot of issues in terms of things that we needed to fix. But even Ruby took us a whole hour just to tune up. And already, if I take off that backing line, we can see how much real estate we've moved around on in terms of on Morgan's face. So I'm going to leave it there just now. We'll pick up where we left off as far as Morgan goes. And tomorrow's show, the last Club Corbie of the week. I want to thank you all for watching and being members of the club. As I said, it's kind of an uphill struggle, especially just now in terms of, you know, with the readership and just getting Corbie in front of people and getting them interested, and everybody who supports the projects in terms of not just the streams, but you know, the tweets, the posts, the videos, everything. You are all what makes this happen, because like I said, there's no corporate funding behind this. It really is it's a cliche, but it's a grassroots movement to make this happen, and all of you, the core believers, as I've been calling you, are so much of what makes this happen. It's not just me alone, although it feels like that a lot of the time because there's so much work involved, but all of you really help to make this feel worthwhile, and I really appreciate all of you watching the show and just helping in any little way that you can. So I hope to see you tomorrow for the Friday edition of Club Corbie.